So those are my complaints. Do you want to give? Okay, I want to hear your complaint of me, please. I've been waiting. Because I can take feedback too.
Yeah. Can you? I don't know.
Let's see. This is the test.
I have two.
Oh shit! Not just
but
one.
I think one. I think that one is more interesting and relevant.
Okay.
One is that when something doesn't go your way, you can be insufferable. I think you know this.
Yeah.
It's like some examples. Of course, in our fantasy football, if someone makes a trade and it's not with you, obviously, of course, it's unfair, right?
Right.
There's
bias. There's a conspiracy.
Trade. Yeah. It's the Luka trade. It's Pau Gasol. It's right. Pat Mahomes.
Right. Literally, it was Pat Mahomes earlier this year. Pat Mahomes for like a tight end or something. Mark traded at Jason's wedding.
Interesting. It can create like a tense environment. Because whenever someone's complaining about something, you can be a little tense. And if it goes on for too long, then it's like, oh man, like, do we have to deal with this? Or, how do we even stop this?
Right.
And
I can get personal with it too.
Yeah. Sometimes everybody sort of does this, but it's similar with, bleep. Whenever you criticize them, they will not accept the criticism. They will simply attack you back. You don't necessarily do this, but it could sort of mold into that where now.
Which bleep are you talking about? The first one or the second one? Or the third one?
This is a different person.
Okay. All right.
This is a different person. And I don't know if you can necessarily get personal, but it becomes a nuisance in a way,
Do you have an example outside of fantasy though? I agree. I do that 100% of the time.
Yeah.
In leagues.
It doesn't happen in person unless you're competing in something. If you're competing in something, the thing that stands out in my head is when you were playing basketball with Jacob and you were losing and you were almost crying. You were basically crying.
In Vegas?
In Vegas, yeah. Do you remember this?
We played a lot of games, but I don't remember crying.
You were on the verge.
Was the whole thing where he pushed me and then I pushed him?
There was probably some nefarious things going on, but
okay.
And so maybe you were in the right, but it's just like the
immaturity came up.
Yeah, I guess it's the immaturity and like the arguing about things, and I feel like, I guess. First of all, do you agree that you do this?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Definitely competitive environments, 100%.
Competitive environments, but yeah, I guess it's probably...
The other time it comes up a lot, and I've heard this from people, is I'm a planner. I like to plan events or trips or whatever the fuck. And
when things don't go perfectly?
When things don't go well, or if I give someone else a responsibility and they fuck up,
yeah,
I lose it.
Yeah. Well, that's just maybe people are going to mess up and, you need to be okay with that. It's the complaining about things. I guess complaining about things. That's
why I'm your first guest on this podcast.
No, it's not. But when
I'm the chief complainer.
I actually came up with this today, this other thing, because I had something else for before, but now it was this today.
Yeah.
And I was thinking why is it this way? Why, if you don't get your way, if something goes, someone else does something that you don't like, or something, why do you
get so emotional about it?
Yeah. And my thought, and I would love to hear what you think.
Yeah, I'm curious.
My thought is, maybe there are plenty of thoughts. One is maybe it feels like you're achieving your goal Like even though you don't actually get your way, even though something didn't go your way, the fact that you said something is making it known that you don't agree with the situation, and that like that makes you a winner in some way because you didn't lose, right? You are sort of saving yourself from embarrassment in some way because you have addressed the situation in words.
I've given the excuses because some unfairness to why I'm not going to win the situation.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know if that's actually what it is, but it was just like what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that, but I'll let you keep going.
That was kind of my next thing was maybe Nathan can explain this.
No, that's definitely part of it. I think I know a lot of times when I complain about a trade that I want to veto or just generally about something that I think is unfair, because I think about this at a societal level a lot. That's why I care so much about politics. I always have.
Yeah.
Because I brought up the sports teams like initially, right? To me, fairness is like playing on a level set of rules and everyone following those and having kind of an equal starting point in competition, in life, in politics, whatever, to me is like a value or like a utopia that obviously doesn't exist, but like I wish is there. And therefore, part of the reason I love sports so much is it's kind of the closest you can get to that, where like there's a set rules, you're in a contained environment. Like you talk about loving the human drama of sports because it's like a little fishbowl. You watch these characters play and interact and complain. Like I'd be probably a very interesting pro athlete if I was constantly bitching to the media and getting fined and all that stuff. You would love following me. But
you're one of my favorite players.
Right. I hate watching. But yeah, to me, fairness, again, going back to childhood, given that I thought like I didn't have the same start that many people did, like I had to pay for my own college. I had to, and take the debt on, I didn't have a car until much later. And I had to kind of work harder than I felt like a lot of other people who I grew up with who had money did necessarily. So therefore I felt like that's not fair. And I had to overcome that. Therefore I want to be in more environments where there is fairness. And if anyone kind of like jeopardizes that in some way, whether it's true or not, it gets triggered for me.
Yeah.
Coming from that, that base. And therefore I get pretty much more emotional than the average person.
That's fair.
So I'm, you've called this out, and I also do it also because. So that's one thing. I like the fairness thing. It's also because of the excuse. If I do end up losing, I have a reason because I'm very competitive. But I think another reason would be, it's kind of the whole antagonist. Like I get some humor, I get some entertainment out of it. If I get like a rival,
this explains a lot.
I get motivation from me. Like the most famous,
but it's so annoying for us.
I'm sorry, but it's the way I get my competitive juices out. But like the most famous person, like you brought up Kobe, he's an example of this. Who takes slights from anything, including his own teammates.
Yeah,
Jordan's the guy I wanted to bring up. Somebody who, no matter what he's competing in, if you do anything that's like cheating, he's going to freak the fuck out. But like also,
and I took it personally.
Right. But like any sort of like attack on his character or his work ethic or whatever it was, he was going to use to motivate himself.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to compare myself to the greatest basketball player of all time. What I'm saying is, right. What I'm saying is, LeBron's the opposite, right? Where he's like a very mellow, chill guy who like doesn't need that motivation to just stay great, which is another reason I respect him.
Physical gifts to not need the motivation.
It's physical. He works hard, but like he doesn't need to have people hate him too. Like he wants people to love him, and he's generally a good guy. He's a family guy, all this stuff. But I think to me it's like another form of motivation that I know is annoying and I'm trying to reduce. When you see me on like, you've watched a couple of my soccer games, it's a different personality when I'm out there. Like that's to me is the ultimate form of, when I'm competing in fantasy, competing in poker, competing in basketball with my brother. The ultimate form of that is when I'm in my stupid San Francisco 11s league.
Yeah. Where
it's as serious as I can simulate. I've got to try out. I just did a fucking endurance test, that I did well in, but like in my head, I'm like, I got to be better than everyone. I got to push. I know I'm one of the oldest guys on the team at this point, and I've been doing this for 10 plus years, but like, that's what keeps me going. And then when I'm on the field, my voice changes, my personality changes. I'm violent. I'm aggressive. I don't get a lot of like red cards or like playing unfairly, because again, fairness is important, but I am very physical.
Yeah.
And, it's my way of the whole therapeutic release we talked about at the beginning, of just being like, I'm going to get out everything, and I'm going to, in soccer, it's like shoulder check. It's like, hip check is in hockey, and there's tackling in football, which I love tackle football, but in soccer, it's a shoulder check. It's the only legal time where you're running side by side with someone. You can hit them as hard as you can, and they can go flying, and it's legal. I live for that shit.
All right, that explains a lot.
So yeah, there's the context. But again, I know this is annoying and frustrating for people, and I want to reduce it.
Yeah, I mean,
moderate it.
I think when it means something, when it's really truly, when it matters for life, I think it, or if it's in such an artificial environment, like in soccer. Well, it's not artificial, but like,
no, it is.
It's like, that's like a contained environment where you can, do this.
It's like video game. It's a simulation. All of it is. I mean, you can go to the professional level and say that's also bullshit, but like, obviously at the amateur level, yeah, you're simulating a competitive environment to get out these emotions that men have in general. I think women have it too, but like
when it's contained like that, but when it's with your group of friends,
yeah,
and it just like sort of extends beyond the bounds in which it's useful. I
agree.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Because I go personal, because it's like if I'm still gonna get beat, and I still think it's unfair, and I think whatever, I'm gonna be like, you know what, you're just doing this because X, Y, Z, like you're a piece of shit, whatever, like you're just a horrible person.
Yeah, sometimes you do attribute certain things to
character.
A character or a like some intent, some malicious intent, which is not necessarily the case, but it's like maybe something. Maybe it's something that you use to motivate yourself, because it's like, oh, this person just did this because of this and that. Now I'm gonna beat their ass,
Yeah. I think I've said this before. I think you can tell a lot about a person's general character about how they play sports, in particular sports. I don't think you can tell that much from tennis. Maybe I play some tennis, but not a ton. But like, I think there's particular sports where there's more physical interaction, because tennis, you're on the opposite sides of a court, right? More physical interaction and more opportunities for stuff to be slipped in.
Yeah. It's like when I hold you a little bit when you're driving down the lane.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'll get to that. But I think, basketball is one of the best examples. You can tell a lot about a person's general character, in my opinion, based on the way they play basketball. Soccer to an extent, football to an extent. But I think basketball, honestly, is probably the best sports to really determine how a person is in general. And I'll give you a couple of different types of examples. So, for my brother, who I've always been super competitive with, but he's the LeBron to my Jordan. He doesn't need to feel slighted to be motivated. He just loves it because he loves playing the game. and he's good, but he has like an intelligence when he plays. I think he's a very smart person. And he isn't the fastest, isn't the strongest, isn't the tallest, but like he uses his mind to like think the next step, and he plays kind of like a point forward position and can shoot, but like he's playing cerebrally and gets people involved. And so I kind of like respect the way he plays, but for me, I'm not as skilled as he is, but I'm more athletic. And so I have to use my abilities to gain advantage. And that involves working harder, which is I think what you're more in the realm of, like boxing out and crashing the boards and slashing to the basket and
playing defense in general,
playing defense, one-on-one defense and getting in front of somebody. And so I respect the work ethic that you have when you played, you quit a long time ago, but when you played, and I think when you did hold at times, or like, you'd use the arm bar or whatever. And it was, to me, it wasn't malicious the way you did it though. It was more like you knew you were getting beat, but you were kind of like skirting the line. Could have been called by a ref, maybe 50-50.
Not if I'm in the Lakers.
Right. But it was like, it was kind of like, to a good player who was facing against you, it was like a little bit of an extra challenge that was within the realm of allowed.
You can take it as a compliment.
Yeah, it was like you were respecting the ability of that player, so you're gonna compensate for that by playing a little bit dirty, but not so much that it's too much.
Yeah, it's like, I'm definitely gonna lose this game, but you're gonna
make it hard for me.
Yeah.
Whereas then someone we brought up earlier, Monty, who I played in Vegas too, he's gonna find whatever little advantage he might have, and then just grade it down. It's not gonna be entertaining. It's not gonna be fun.
It's just tax evasion.
It's exactly. It's finding the loophole,
yeah,
and claiming victory based on that, when it's like you're not playing the game, you're just being a dick.
Yeah.
And to me, that says a lot about the rest of what else is going on.
So when you are in this mood of complaining about something going wrong, not going your way, do you recognize it, or are you just sort of,
there's a little bit of red mode, fire alarm shit going on, but I do, to an extent, recognize it. I do try to, again, like add a little humor, a little bit to it. Maybe it's still annoying, but like I try to like.
One thing you should know is that humor doesn't always come across over text, and it's a huge problem with not you but the world, and that's why Twitter is a mess or whatever.
That's fair. Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
Especially, sorry, not to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Especially when it's coming from someone who so often has these angry bouts of.
Right. It's tough to tell what side of the line I'm on. Am I truly aggrieved and just being annoying and annoyed?
Yeah.
Or am I not taking that seriously and just kind of joking around? Yeah. I mean, it's tough to tell. So that makes sense.
It's something that I personally benefit from, because so often I am not serious, that sometimes when I am serious and like maybe being a little mean and I am seeing a little red, people maybe think it's actually funny instead. I'm like, I'm actually really mad. But
probably pisses you off even more.
Maybe. No, I don't know.
It doesn't? You're trying to be serious. You're trying to call out something and they're just joking. They think you're just joking.
No, because I always regret it. I always regret when I'm in those moods.
I respect that.
At work, if I'm ever sending an angry email, it's probably not good. But oftentimes I look back at those emails and they're not as bad as I thought they would have been. Sometimes they're a little funny.
Okay. So that was one. Did you have the other one? Or was it tied into what you said?
Well, actually, let me finish this one on how to change it. Because I think my first question was, do you know when you're doing it?
Yeah.
Sometimes not, but sometimes, and my thought is like, well, what if we told you? But I think we have maybe, I think it doesn't work.
I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. And I think it actually just,
it goes to what you said before. It's me just saying, I'm just going to point this out. I don't care if it changes the outcome, but I'm just going to put this out there because I'm pissed off. And at least there's a record of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know what is happening, but continue.
No, it was, I think if it's ever, I think if anybody ever calls you out in the moment, it's almost like most people I think wouldn't respond well to that, right? Like most people, when you call them out on something in the moment, like sometimes it can work. And if it's done in exactly the right way, calling someone out in the moment works. In public, it's hard. Maybe if you like take them aside or something, but I think most people are like too proud to admit in the moment, like, yeah, you're right. I'm kind of sucking right now. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that would work.
I mean, especially because we're talking about group chats right now for the majority of the examples.
Yeah.
Again, in person
is different. Yeah.
I don't think any of this really happens, which I think is part of what it's a release for me.
Yeah.
I don't take the group chats as seriously, I think, as you might. In terms of like a friendship thing, like to me, it's much more about in-person engagement.
Yeah.
Whereas the group chat is like a void to just yell into. That's my like screaming into, a crowd or whatever the fuck.
That's fair. The only problem there is that 99% of our interactions are on group chats.
Sadly.
Yeah, it is sad. I mean, like it is sad.
But how do I fix it? I think the answer is, recognizing that it turns people off. We've brought this up before. I know it's a problem. And knowing, especially when I know I'm not going to fix the underlying problem, just letting it go and maybe make one comment, because it's hard for me to just
of course,
just say like, you know what, that trade was shit, and then move on. I don't think anyone would really, they would acknowledge, okay, Nathan didn't like the trade, he doesn't like any trades, but like it wouldn't bother them at that point. Yeah,
but the problem is it will always be tempting because someone's going to argue against it. I think the one thing is like everybody, our buddy Monty always wants to have the last word.
Or Jason, someone who's trying to poke buttons and push buttons.
It's like, I remember there's a situation where I made a criticism of some sort to Jason, and instead of accepting it and maybe thinking about it, he just came back and attacked me, right? And all I said was like, that's fair. And then that's it. Nothing else.
You didn't feed the beast.
No. And I think it's not feeding the beast is very important.
Not taking the bait.
It's not even necessarily bait. It's just, someone's not always trying to bait you. It's just like, they're just arguing against you because they feel the other way.
Yeah.
And it's just going to not stop if you keep going back and forth.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give it a shot more.
Nice.
Other one? Last one?
The other one, I'm late for calling deep. The other one's not that important.
Okay.
It's something you do that Trump does as well.
Oh, fuck.
Which is saying something that's not necessarily true, but not necessarily false, but with a lot of confidence. We don't have to go into this. I actually, let me text Steve real quick. Kvetch.